welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on another glorious week in the state of Texas. I have a long list of good news to share with you, and I don't know if I have enough time in 26 minutes to cover it all. No, it probably won't take that long. As we speak, President Trump is signing an executive order making it clear that nowhere in the United States of America will a woman have to be forced with competing against a man in women's sports. The Save Women's Sports issue has been one of the hottest issues of the past couple of years. There is no question it was a difference maker in the elections at the national level and certainly played a role at the state level here in the state of Texas with a big Senate race on the ticket last November with Senator Cruz winning re-election and so on. And look, I mean, it's an issue that it almost seems daily that we get new information. There's a new case of this unfairness happening. Now that the Biden administration is out the door, common sense is returned. And really, the Biden administration was waving the white flag on a lot of this issue as they were leaving anyway. But Trump comes in, makes it a priority. I was there in Milwaukee on the floor of the Republican National Convention in July when Trump said, when I'm elected, we will not have men competing in women's sports. So you can make the argument that that is a promise made, a promise kept. Our wonderful friend, Riley Gaines, is at the White House today. I would imagine, I haven't seen all the pictures yet, that she's going to be in the Oval Office or wherever it is that President Trump is signing that executive order, as well as other friends like Paula Scanlon and so on. But listen, Governor Abbott mentioned this issue in his State of the State speech over the weekend on Sunday. We know the issue is not complete. I mean, we have state law in Texas on this, but we've also got issues related to showers and locker rooms and things of that nature. And really to try to create a climate where women don't have to continue to fight so hard on this and that people realize this is the law, okay? This is how it's going to be, whether you like it or not, and so on. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I do think that's going to be relevant to our state legislative session, which is in its, we're the fourth week or so. So things are starting to move a little bit, and we got some good updates about that. As a matter of fact, today, because we have a great guest on the show, returning to the Texas Values Report is State Representative Tom Oliverson from the northwest part of Houston. He is a good friend. You remember, he's a great friend. He is the leader and was the House author for the bill that protected kids from the dangerous gender transition, sex change procedures, puberty blockers, and so on. That was in the 2023 legislative session. He's also the House Republican Caucus chair. Very important position. We'll talk a little bit about what that means during this session in the leadership position that he's held for a good chunk of time, as a matter of fact. And you might remember that he also put his name out there and so on to challenge the sitting Speaker of the House. Some dominoes fell, and now we have a new speaker. And but people are ready to get going over the Texas House, and so we're looking forward to a great conversation. Chairman Oliverson, welcome back to the Texas Values Report.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be with you and all the viewers again. And I sure appreciate all the support that you've given us over the last couple of years as we work together on SB 14 and also on the speaker's race and just everything. And here we are again, another opportunity to do good things. So
well, there's no question.
Make the most of it.
There's no question about that. We'll talk in a little bit a bill that I know you're going to be filing soon that protects conscious protections on a lot of these issues that, a version of it was at the legislature before, some unfinished business that we want to get done. Representative Oliverson, represents the House District 130, which includes Tomball, Cypress, Waller, Hockley, Harris County, and so on. And we're looking forward to, we're hoping to have him at Texas Faith and Family Day on Thursday, March 6th, so he can be there with his neighbor, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and have a lot of good information to share. I know you guys were on the floor earlier. The House was, look, this is coming down nationally all the way at the state level, just the victories that are coming, and we need to continue those. Governor Abbott touched on some of that at the State of the State speech, but, I don't think you and I have gotten to talk, at least not in person, since a week and a half ago when Dr. Heim had the charges dropped against him when he was facing 10 years in prison. Crazy. What an incredible victory that's been that you helped set in place, right? By having a state law that says this is illegal. Dr. Heim comes out and says Texas Children's Hospital is still doing it. Next thing you know, Biden's trying to put him in jail. And the Trump administration tossed those aside. And so a lot of different things happened that I think is good evidence that, we've got some wind at our back, we got some momentum, but that just means the time is even more right to get good things done.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, you raise a good issue. I mean, I think you know, Dr. Heim is a free man. The CEO of Texas Children's is gone, that started all that stuff. And I received word fairly recently that the three doctors that the nurse Vanessa had implicated that were running this program, they're all gone too. And so uh, progress, right? Science is winning.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And we'll have to bring her on the show soon. Nurse Vanessa Sivage was doing some work with us for about 3 or 4 months after she got fired by Texas Children's Hospital. So we were happy to have her a part of the team for a little bit, but now she's gone out on her own and started her own organization. I think it's Protect Texas Children's. I forget exactly the name of it. We'll bring her on the show and talk a little bit about that. So she's not done being involved in this issue, which is a tremendous benefit. Governor Abbott talked a little bit about these gender ideology issues, DEI, so on, over the weekend, the State of the State, saying that there's only going to be two sexes, and his state executive order made very clear that if they're educators that are trying to tell boys that they can be girls, they need to be fired on the spot. I mean, the governor was just rolling, right, on this stuff. But I say it all the time. When the governor is on your side for the issues you want to get done during the legislative session, your chances of success increase dramatically, in my opinion, in my experience.
Yeah, I have to say, I was in the audience. I believe you were as well, and listening to the governor's speech on Sunday. And when he said that bit about, hey, there's only two sexes, it's male and female, and if there's a teacher that's teaching that you can go from being a boy to a girl, they should be fired on the spot. I was like, science is winning, finally. That's great. And we see the same thing. I know you mentioned it briefly earlier, but I also thought it was great to see President Trump last week basically state in executive order exactly what we spent all of last session working together on to get passed here in Texas, which is that, hey, if you're a hospital and you're engaged in mutilating children through surgery or chemicals that's designed to change their gender, you are no longer eligible to participate in any of the government funding programs for healthcare. And Jonathan, for your listeners that may not know that, if you're a hospital and you get kicked out of the Medicare program, you're dead. You
Yeah.
can't survive without it. So, I mean, that's why you're seeing these hospitals across the country now that are suddenly, they were all like, "Yay, gender medicine, we'll never bend the knee," right? And now all of a sudden they're like, "Well, I guess we're done with that."
Yeah, no,
Because
look, I mean,
they know they would have to close.
it's game over now. We got to keep our eye on them because you want to make sure those things are being enforced. But it's not as if, oh, I didn't hear that. When the president speaks, it gets carried quite a few different places, and people take notice of that because a lot of times, and Trump was specific about this, if you do this, if you participate in these programs and these type of operations or junk science, whatever they're trying to make people believe it is, you're not getting federal funding for your hospital, and
Right.
many of them rely heavily on that. And so it looks game on that and game over in many ways. It
Yeah.
should be. And it's interesting because this issue is kind of taken a lot of different turns and so on. But even Jeff Younger from here in Texas, who had been fighting these issues from, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And there's been some twists and turns along that, but his kid's up in California, right? I see it. I saw him post about that because that's about the only thing that he could hope for because a lot of things have not gone his way on that issue. And now, at least according to him, his son is going to be safe from these type of things in California. We'll see, but that's the power of the president. Let's shift though to the state because I want people to, with our time together, I want to focus a little bit on your role as House Republican Caucus Chair. You're not the Speaker of the House. You're not, it's not about I'm the chair of a certain committee. And so on, there may be some people like, well, where does that fit into this equation, right? And you and I know, because I've been around since '05 at the Capitol, the Republican Caucus Chair is a very important and influential position. But tell us a little bit of detail about that so our listeners can get a good sense.
Sure, yeah. So we have a House Republican caucus. Currently, our caucus is 88 members strong, including the Speaker. Um, the caucus basically is there for all Republicans. You have to pay your dues to join, but anyone who's elected as a Republican is eligible. The caucus is responsible for going out on the House floor and organizing Republicans and unifying Republicans and getting Republicans to work together to pass important, conservative measures. And so, we're looking at literally, I was taking notes during the governor's speech on Sunday. We're looking at passing all of his emergency action items. We're, of course, strongly committed to passing all of RPT's legislative priorities. And there are other priorities that members have identified and things that are really important that we want to see done. We want to be able to say we went home and we moved the bar and protected the unborn. Obviously, we want to protect conscience rights. We want to get the Ten Commandments in public schools, and a whole variety of things, Jonathan. So the caucus is basically the workhorse, if you will, that organizes that and helps to make sure that when we go out on the House floor as Republicans, that we're getting those things accomplished. We're working with the leadership and we're working with the office. We're not part of the back hallway. We represent all Republicans, but we're here to get the work done and to make sure that our members go home and can say, "Hey, we did all the things that you asked us to do." So that's what we fight for.
And about how often does the House Republican caucus meet? Is there a specific schedule, just sort of as needed? How does the structure work?
Yeah, it's kind of variable, and it's been done different ways in different, years depending on who the caucus chair is. My own personal belief and my feeling is that anytime there's a bill that's going to be on the floor that where we really need to have 76
Yeah.
Republicans voting for that, we should be having a caucus meeting to talk about that and make sure we get people on the same page and that we're all unified. And then we got a good, strong conservative bill, and it's not watered down, and it's doing what we need it to do.
Yeah.
So I want to have those meetings frequently and often. Right now, there's not a whole lot going on the House floor. We're just still getting organized. People forget that we're kind of, and I talked about this during the speaker's race. There are constitutional requirements that are placed on the House in terms of what we can and can't do. We can now act on anything that the governor's declared an emergency action item on. So we're waiting for committee assignments to be revealed by the Speaker's office so that we can begin having hearings and start working on some of those things. My hope is that we will fast track all of the emergency action items, including school choice, to the House floor. I will certainly be pushing for that as caucus chair. And we'll sort of see how that plays out. We expect committee assignments to come out any day now, and at that point, then that's when the House really gets organized and starts working.
And, let's talk a little. I mean, there have been some votes taken, though, in the Texas House. We won't get into the details of the one yesterday, but there were some recent, people have been, there's been chatter about this and that, over the past couple of weeks. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of some of those things. But, look, there was the big vote, and the first week was about the speaker, and then there was some dust up about the rules, and now people concerned about who the parliamentarian is. What is your sense of, I saw Speaker Burrows speak a week and a half ago or so at Texas Public Policy Foundation when the Texan had an event. And his view was, the House has never been, more united, right? And, a rosy message. But, you guys had a football game last night. I mean, what is your sense? Is it not to suggest some of those votes and the way they've gone haven't mattered, but are people coming together a little bit more and sort of preparing themselves? Hey, we're going to have to vote soon on some pretty important issues. We got to figure out a way to stick together.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've summarized it well. I mean, the beginning of the session, day one, that was rough, man. That was two sides competing, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the side that prevailed was majority minority party. But we're all Republicans, and at this point, I think the reality is that we have a speaker. He is not an unconservative guy. I want to be really clear about that.
Yeah.
If you look at his
His voting record's
you
pretty
look at where
solid.
he's from,
Yeah.
he's solid. He's really solid. He's solid on pro-life issues. He's solid on marriage and family issues. As an individual member, he's a very conservative member. And so, our hope is, and my belief is that we can have a very conservative session under his leadership. We have to figure out how to unite as 88 Republicans. And if we're going to have fights, we need to have fights with Democrats. We need to not be fighting amongst ourselves. We're not at that point yet. I'm going to be very frank with you. There's still divisions in our caucus. There's still, us versus them. I'm doing everything I can to try to mend some of those fences. At the same time, we want to make sure that it's a Republican-led House. The reform movement during the speaker's race was really all about making sure that Republicans who were elected in the majority governed as a majority. The minority can be heard, the minority has rights, we respect the rights of the minority, but ultimately the majority governs and the majority is Republican, and that's how it should be. And so there should be a reasonable expectation by everybody listening to this show that every single one of those Republican priorities is very passable in the Texas House, including school choice.
Well, and look, with 88 Republicans, am I right? That's what 88 Republicans. That's one of the highest numbers in a while. I mean, there was several sessions back. I think there were 95. I remember, was it 2010 or I forget what session it was, 2 years after Obama got elected or something, that it was at like 101 or 102. It was like, wow, right? And so, but, 88 is still pretty solid number. That gives you, 10, 11, 12 vote margin, maybe 13 if the speaker votes, and so on. So that should be comfortable, but, not everybody's always there, and, it could be some other dynamics. But a lot of good numbers to work with. There's no doubt. And look, the governor's got a lot of things on the emergency items, but I don't think there's any question that last election cycle, as it relates to Republicans, was about getting people into the House or back to the House that were going to support school choice. The governor mentioned it significantly in his speech, the State of the State speech on Sunday. I was not there, by the way. Mary Elizabeth was there from our team.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And, but I
did see Mary Elizabeth.
I just have that presence. Like, you're like, oh, but Jonathan's in the room somewhere. No, I'm kidding.
Gotta be here somewhere. I just assumed you were.
But I was tuning in, right? And I've said this a couple of times, just trying to having fun, because I am, but so people know I'm a regular guy. I'm like folding laundry on a Sunday afternoon or whatever, in my bedroom, but I was watching it and I'm like, I was taking my clips or whatever, and when Governor Abbott said, people need to get fired on the spot. He had some really strong moments, but the school choice issue, that's the expectation. The Republicans are going to come together. The House is in the process of passing that bill today, and sort of the question remains, or at least the discussion, okay, is the House going to get it done? The expectation is that they will. Speaker Burrows has said that it's a priority for him as well. It may just be sort of what the details look like, but that test, if you will, that vote may come sooner, or maybe become one of the first ones that hits the floor. I know the budget's got to get done too, but if the Senate's done today, and committee assignments, I was hearing it was going to be this week, but I'm also hearing now maybe next week. But nonetheless, the opportunity for that school choice to be on the floor in the House could be in the next week or two.
I'd like to see that, and I will be pushing for that. I don't think there's any benefit at this point. We already know how everybody's voting. I think we should move it as fast as we can. We need to get SB2 to the floor. We need to vote it out of the House, send it to the governor. And look, then we have plenty of time left to do other things, right?
That's right.
I think one of and I've been very clear about this, all through the speaker's race. I don't like the traditional way that we do things in the House. I think we should move faster on emergency action items like the Senate does. I don't like the idea of letting things pile up until after the budget. I want to move those emergency action items as soon as possible, and that's my view, and I think that would be more efficient. And quite frankly, I think that leaves more time for members,
That's right,
even Democrat members, to pass local bills and things that matter to them. Get these important things out of the way. Don't waste a lot of time, and then there's less desire at the end of session to just sit there and chub away.
Well, and we saw that with your bill, SB 14, the bill to protect kids from the gender mutilation and puberty blockers issue and so on, which ended up getting done, but not, that was after a couple of 2 or 3 points of order. It turned up a lot of time. A lot of times, the opposition, primarily Democrats, they use it as a way, sort of leverage, or as a way to sort of, make sure certain bills never get to the floor. It's a strategic advantage, if you will, or they try to use it that way. They're already out there. Gene Wu, state rep, I guess he's the Democrat caucus chair now in the House, doing a press conference, specifically talking and zeroing in on their opposition to parental choice and freedom for kids and parents. But that may just be because it's first. It's happening now. But I don't know. It could end up being like this to them is their biggest fight. I want to mention a couple other issues, too, before we run out of time. You've got a bill that's going to be filed soon. Sort of shortly, we're calling it the Med Act, MED, like medical conscience protection, religious freedom issues. That's something we've worked with you on before. A couple of versions of it have been filed in the Senate already, but I know it's going to come out of the House soon. Look, as we talk about the gender identity issues, there are a lot of important religious freedom and life issues that relate to conscience protection that, we've wanted to get done, but, it just didn't come together. I think the timing's perfect this session.
Yeah, I mean, it's a top priority for me, Jonathan. I mean, I think we want moral and ethical people in healthcare. When you're holding someone's life in your hands, I hope that you believe in God. I hope that you believe in a power greater than yourself. And I hope you believe that there's absolute right and wrong, and that the way that you interact in caring for that person should be biblical from the standpoint of putting the needs of others ahead of your own. We want that, right? And we don't want to discourage that. And I heard stories and stories and stories, not just of doctors, but nurses, secretaries, techs, patient care assistants who were told that they had to do things that violated their sincerely held religious beliefs and their conscience. And they felt like they had to quit their job and go somewhere else. And we just lost a morally driven, upstanding citizen that you could be confident was going to take excellent care of somebody who is in medical need.
No,
that has got to be addressed.
No,
and you guys have worked so hard with us on that, and we're so grateful. And your partners nationwide, we're really grateful to the support. And I think this is the session we get it done.
Well, and the hostility to common sense values, I'm certain, has spooked a lot of good people. 10, 12 years ago, when this was starting to heat up more, we were hearing from people tell us they didn't want to go to medical school. They didn't want to get in some of these fields because it was just too much. They were getting pressured in the classroom. They were being called out, and just not everybody's like me or you, right? Where they're going to I'm going to stand my ground. I mean, it's very difficult. We see how people can get torn apart sometimes on social media and other circumstances when they just try to stand up for common sense, oftentimes values-based or biblical values in their own, rights of conscience and religious freedom views and so on. So we're looking forward to that. I think that's one of the most important issues for this session. I think the privacy issue is going to be huge. Those are bills that have been filed by Valerie Swanson in the House and also Ellen Troxclair to close the loop. Now that, we shouldn't have men competing in women's sports, well, we want to make sure there's not a man undressing in that locker room either, because we know sometimes that could happen. People come from other states or different parts of the state, and, they're not as interested in following the law or it being enforced. We'd love to see something statewide. We're going to run out of time in a minute. We're hoping to see you at our Texas Faith and Family Day, as I mentioned, along with Lieutenant Governor March 6th. Look, I know you've had some great leadership positions, as you mentioned, some national groups, National Association of Christian Lawmakers. You got recognized as Freshman of the Year several sessions back. I continue to see your role in the House, and particularly, we're talking about these medical issues. Your background as an anesthesiologist and a medical doctor, so critical, right, to the issues we work on, and the temperament as well. I don't know that anyone has a more effective temperament, and that includes working with Democrats. I did an interview with the Texas Tribune the other day asking me about Governor Abbott's State of the State speech. I think there's going to be some Democrats that are going to support some of these bills this time around, and it's not going to be just about Republicans.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And you're very kind in your words. All I can say in response is just that, that's not me. That's the Lord. I didn't come up here because I needed a job. I had a good job, as you pointed out, but I felt like I could best, serve God by serving my state. And I felt like that's what he called me to do. And he's continued to look out for my family and, equip me and provide for me and make sure that I'm in a position to serve him up here, and that's what I love. That's what I love doing. That's what I love about this job. That's what I love about working with you guys, and all the supporters that are listening to this show that pray for us. Please keep praying for us. Your lawmakers need your prayers.
Yeah.
They are under a lot of pressure, but they have the potential to do great things. And so pray for them.
Well, there's no doubt. And look, I mean, it's always a two-way street, things that we can help with you on, whether it's a specific issue for us or not. I'm going to be in your district, by the way. I need to check my calendar. I got invited to speak to a group in Cyprus, I believe. So I'll let you know when I'm headed out that way, and maybe you'll be around, maybe not. Maybe you'll be hard at work.
Cyprus conservatives, by chance?
Maybe I need to check my notes. I came in on Monday, and so, but I'm always look, I love going back to Houston when I can, my hometown, if you will. But look, I think things are going to start to move, and we'll see where things go. I think the national conversation, certainly state conversation, people are talking about the things that we have wanted them to know were going on for years. And so we got some tremendous opportunity. Now that there's focus on it, we're going to go work on getting done. And I know you're key to that leadership. So we appreciate you. And we're so thankful that Chairman, State Representative Tom Oliverson has been our guest today on the Texas Values Report.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks to your listeners.
All right, appreciate you. Okay, I got like 30 seconds. Love talking with Dr. Oliverson. Just so valuable to the Capitol and the Texas House. As I mentioned at the beginning, as we were opening this segment, President Trump was signing an executive order, making it clear men are not going to compete against women in sports nationwide. Oh, by the way, White House press secretary was asked, what about the Olympics and what about the NCAA? And I'm not going to quote it specifically because I don't remember it verbatim, but I did repost it on X, that what she said was, yeah, that includes the NCAA and Olympics, and this executive order is putting them on notice that they better get with the program and follow this because this applies to them as well. And so, oh my gosh, could we get off to a better start of our issues under this Trump administration this time around? What a breath of fresh air and momentum, and the opportunity to do great things increases dramatically when you've got the leader in the White House along with his team that are right behind you, and they're pushing the envelope. They're setting the stage. They're leading on an issue as well that is so important and has a ripple effect. There's no doubt. Listen, if you see value in our work, please consider making a donation at txvalues.org. The events we have, the different work we do, cost money. Faith and Family Day, March 6th. That is a Thursday. We want you to come to that. That costs money to have people come in, to buy food for lunch, to pay people to help with the event, the whole deal. Right? We're going to set up buses. Look for that so you can come from different parts of the state. Love to have a great group there. It's going to be one of the most impactful, valuable days that you'll have. First half of the day is about what are the bills? How does the process work? What do you need to know? Then we're going to have lunch. Then we're going over to the Capitol for the second half of the day. 2 blocks away from the Capitol is where the event will happen at 901 Congress. TexasFaithandFamilyDay.com is the event website. Looking forward to seeing you there. I'm sure there's something I missed. I'm going to check my notes real quick. NRB, we're going to be at that convention in about 2 or 3 weeks. Look for our booth there. We're going to be doing live interviews on the spot. Super excited about being there. I've been wanting to get to this event for several years. So maybe we'll see you there if you're coming to the South Lake area at the Gaylord Texan there in Grapevine. So I'm out of time. Listen, thank you for your support of our work. Please consider donating to us at txvalues.org. That's how we can together protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.